I will say outright that I fail 360 days out of 365 is that probably this is my vehicle of getting to my spiritual goal, which is the main goal for me. I have a following of more than 75,000 people right now. I've had days in my first year of writing on LinkedIn where I reached million impressions from one post. The last two posts have written, they have not gone beyond 4,000 impressions.
How do you manage that in uncertainty?
Not well. If people don't know you are a mentor who has this solution, how will people come to you?
I know that you helped a lot of people, especially with MAANG companies. And what makes those people different from someone working for a startup?
Nothing.
Before we dive into this conversation, please give me just 20 seconds. I know you've got hundreds of podcasts you could listen to, but any point during Unlayered, you paused and thought, that was me, or I felt that too. I'd love to ask a quick, simple favor. Please help me with a follow or subscribe to my channel, because that one click will not only help me bring more conversations to you, but for others who might need it. And it means the world for this work to continue. Thank you so much. Enjoy the conversation. Varun, really excited to have you on Unlayered. It's an honor, to be honest. I've been following you and I feel that you've been a mentor to me for over the last few years as well. So I've learned a lot from you, following your guidance and, becoming the career coach and the person you are today. So really excited to have you here today. Now, starting our conversation, I know everyone knows that you're this top career coach who has a massive followers on LinkedIn. Congratulations, by the way. I think you've got followers around 78,000 or maybe more than that right now, counting. Congratulations on your success. And whenever I hear your name, or I share your name with someone else, the one thing that comes up is Varun is the person who always shares these amazing frameworks and who makes complex job search strategies or concepts into a simplified frameworks. But today I want to start our conversation on a different note. I came across a post, I think some months ago, when you shared that boy who was raised in the streets of Mumbai and how that shaped you as the person who you are today, right? What was your earliest memories living in Mumbai, Varun?
The earliest memories was I used to live right across the bus depot of my area. And whenever I look out of the window, all I could see were these double-decker buses. So that's what my earliest memories are, is at the bus depot, the place right outside my house where I used to play cricket all the time. And that's where how we bonded as well, not just our LinkedIn writing, but just our love for cricket is how we bonded. And by the way, thank you for all the things that you said earlier. I really appreciate it. Learn from you as well. I'll get back to the childhood. That's what I remember. Cricket, a bus depot, amazing times with my family. That's, I would say, the first 10 years of my life.
First 10 years, amazing. So I know cricket is a very big part of your life, as you said. We bonded over cricket more than career coaching strategies, right? We talked about the World Cups and the tournaments, and I felt like that was an immediate connection. Did you play cricket? Because I know it's like a religion in India, and I come from a country where cricket is so popular, but nowhere near how India, and how cricket is treated is India. Did you end up playing cricket?
I did end up playing cricket at a very childhood school level. I used to go to these clubs to play cricket, but as a sporty person, that wasn't my strongest sport, even though I do love it a lot. My other sports such as soccer, which I represented my school in, and then badminton and stuff like that I play even to this day. I love badminton. So I wished I was better in cricket than I was, but I love the sport, loved playing it with my friends growing up. We still play box cricket from time to time, but I enjoy watching cricket. Sachin Tendulkar was I was a massive fan of Sachin Tendulkar. 90s Sri Lankan team was pretty cool. I could name the 11 for you right now, but that's cricket has been a part of my life, and it still is. I just don't play it as much as I would like because I'm not as good at it.
But it's amazing that you picked up some other sports as well in addition to cricket, because I know that could be the natural choice for someone living in a country like India where cricket is so popular, and it could be a natural choice. But were there any lessons picking up some other sports like badminton, soccer? Because it's a different sport, but the lessons that you take, maybe you can still relate to from picking up a sport as a kid. Were there any lessons you can share?
I think one of the lessons was that I played a multiple sports for my school. Like I used to play table tennis, I would play soccer, I like football, and I was decent at it. I was probably top 1% of my class level. And as soon as I went from my school, where let's say I was one of the top dogs, right? And I would go to the competition which had people from all over Mumbai.
Yeah.
I would be out in the first round. Like be it table tennis, even soccer, football, our school's team, as soon as we went from like our small district to like Mumbai level, the competition was just completely different. So one of the first few learnings for me there was that being the top dog is good, enjoy that. At the same time, know that there are levels beyond that that exist. And if it's important for you, you need to kind of find that level and then to get to that level. Maybe sport wasn't as important for me, but a surprising thing that you might not know is that I used to be part of a dancing troupe in India growing up as well.
Oh,
And in
wow.
that, I was able to kind of get to like a place where, okay, this is the best school in India at that time for contemporary and jazz. And I am there in like the group of 100 or 150 people who were part of this massive organization. So sometimes it's luck that you kind of get that training. And I think that was one of the lessons is that you can be a top dog in like one of the like small area that you're in, but you have to find other people better than you to kind of reach the next level.
That's amazing, because I think that's one of the lessons even for me I took by picking up a sport as a kid. I know I used to play a bit of cricket and rugby, and that part, if you look at in a later stage of life, is so humbling to think of, because yeah, you can be the top player, you could be going one down to play as a batter. But again, when you get into another level or national level, sometimes you might not even get a spot, right? And we can talk about it, how this applies into business or entrepreneurship or job search, all that mindset, that there's always better than you, because that's something that a lot of people face. We'll get you back to that, but it's amazing that you had that exposure to some kind of a sport to learn that it's okay to not be the top dog all the time. Thanks for sharing that, Varun. Now, the other part I wanted to take you into is you talked about some invisible scripts, right? Growing up in Mumbai with the surroundings and the culture, all that. What are some invisible
A lot of
scripts that
scripts
maybe still
around
influence
money.
you?
Right, growing up in India, I in Mumbai specifically, we are a town where you can find affluence in and walk 100 meters and you'll find a slum, right? That's Mumbai in a nutshell. Growing up, I had that exposure. I would kind of be middle of the pack. We were middle class. We had people in my building apartment complex, people near me who had amazing houses, like multiple flats, bungalows, which you couldn't afford. And then 100 meters down the line, you had really literally people sleeping on the streets in like makeshift houses. So you kind of see that and you kind of say, okay, there's luck involved in where you are born and how you're born. So I was grateful to be born, not be born in like the makeshift houses. And it also gave me the drive to reach to a point where if I wanted to buy one of these affluent houses, I could. So it was it's like this balance, right? Which is okay. I'm not as bad in terms of the conditions that some people live in. But okay, there's something for me to seek. So I think that was great. Being in the middle is such a great thing because I think you can you can get that perspective. What the invisible scripts were is if you thought about getting that drive, getting being affluent, there were some invisible scripts around money. Is that people who have a lot of money don't sleep well. That was one of the big scripts growing up. People who have a lot of money got it from cheating other people or from illegal means or something like that. It was never like you build value and money comes to you, right? It was always like, oh, they maybe had an unfair advantage. They maybe knew a politician. Maybe they were doing something illegal. So it was never like you could build wealth. It was always like, okay, wealth was to be kind of looked at as there's something fishy going on here. Um, and then finally, the big one that we have is like, okay, the saving mindset, which is amazing. Like the saving mindset that we all have in the subcontinent is amazing. It's a strength. But at some point, you're always saving from the corpus you are earning. And it took me like reading books and learning from other people to say that at some point you have to think about how to grow your money as well, because then you use the same mindset, save money, but then you're saving a lot more. So those are like, I would say, the three that I could point out which hit me really strongly. Is that first, people with money have fear or live in fear of losing the money. Second was that you've not gotten money in a way that is good karma, something associated with bad karma. And then you should always think about saving money and not living beyond your means. But actually, you should just, if your means are high, try to find out what would it take to fulfill those means.
That's amazing because I can relate to all three because, come from Sri Lanka, like just right next to India, right? Same kind of culture, same kind of upbringing. But I haven't had the chance to see that side with like the slums versus the top buildings, the billionaires living in the same area. It's just a matter of distance. And you see there is opportunity for you, and that's a exposure for you as a kid growing up. But I understand that it drove you as a kid seeing this reality and these invisible scripts as well. And I know that you mentioned that it brought you up with that mindset that no one's going to save you. That's such a powerful motivator, Varun, especially earlier on, bringing your self-reliance on certain challenges that you face. How did that shape you to face challenges earlier on as a child, especially with that mindset about
I couldn't
self-reliance?
articulate this at that time when I was growing up. It was all about locus of control. Like this is a psychology concept that I talk about a lot as well, because I think it's a big part of who I am, what I am. Locus of control is a concept where people either have an external locus of control or an internal locus of control. External locus of control is things happen to me, and internal locus of control is I make things happen. Growing up, I saw so many examples. I'll share you some. Right in school, I had a friend who was really good at studies, really good, top top in Mumbai. Right, his name is Sakit, by the way, name dropping him. And so Sakit was extremely good in studies, and I would look at him and say, okay, great, he's great at studies. I don't maybe have that type of talent, so it's all cool. What I saw him do interestingly was he used that same talent that he had into sports. Now, he wasn't great at all sports, but he picked table tennis and he just systemized it, he formalized it, he did something to get really good at it and practice and hard work, all the things that were part of his ethos. Now, to take that one step further, he was always going for grades in everything, right? And one of our classes was dance, actually. I was in a very amazing school where we had grades for extracurricular activities, and dance was one of them. Now, knowing who Saket was, he wanted to get the best grade he could get. So what he did was he joined our group of good dancers, and again use the same concepts, right? What was a method, what was the steps. He would write down the steps, he would mock up the steps if they need to be, and he performed with us. He did decently well. So I could look at him from the study point of view and say, okay, no, I don't have that talent. But that guy actually used everything that he had learned to kind of do decently well in the other things that could have been a weakness for him. So that was one of my first stories, which is like, holy shit, you can make stuff happen, right? Which is, you don't need to define yourself. And I was defining myself that, oh, I'm not as smart as him, I'm not as talented as him in studies. But he showed me the other way around, saying that, okay, you can figure everything out. So you are in control. It's your internal locus of control that you can manage. And I saw the same examples in my building when people were trying to do businesses, in all these different aspects of life, that nobody was complaining. Like, you couldn't complain in a place like Mumbai. You couldn't say, oh, this happened to me. Dude, I don't have time for that. I'm trying to focus on what I need to do, and I want to get there. I'm going to take the train, and then I'm going to sit in the office, and I'm going to make that shit happen. So that was an amazing experience for me, the whole internal locus of control. And I was only able to articulate it later down the line when a mentor of mine called Ramit Sethi, he kind of shared that concept in one of the courses that I had taken. And I was like, okay, yeah, then the whole puzzle fit, that I have a strong internal locus of control, and that's where everything comes from. But I know that you can also swing too hard on the internal locus of control area, and we can talk about that.
That's very interesting for me, Varun, because I know this same concept maybe is interpreted in different ways, different religions, different philosophies, where you put yourself in a box and then your thoughts and energies feed each other to create that box. For an example, like I tell this story now, how I've like moved away from that box, where I build this story as I'm an introvert. Okay, I'm not good in speaking. Like I was never even tried this when I was a child. And now I'm trying to, put myself out there because I feel like that I've unblocked something. So I thought this happens to me. Someone said something to me. And then I built a story. So I'm building blocks, foundation, introvert. This is my path. Okay. Engineer. Become an engineer. You don't have to speak. Right? Just do your job, go home, salary, okay, you are respected. But again, that internal dialogue was building. Like, I'm keen to hear that part where you left off. What is that internal
I
swing you
think
mentioned, Varun? Are you able to
sometimes
elaborate
you
on
have to
that?
accept that there's destiny involved as well. We don't, like, if you go on the spiritual route, you realize that you don't have a lot of control on your fruits of action. You can do action, but you will not be able to dictate. Like, for example, you and I are entrepreneurs. Like, we can try our best to write good content, to kind of bring people on pages where we are trying to sell a course or sell a coaching. And we can do our best in creating that page, showing examples, reversing risk. But beyond a certain point, you can't control what the other person is going to decide to do. So people with a really strong internal locus of control struggle with that. And I struggled with it, which is like, okay, I'm controlling all my inputs, but I'm not getting control over the output. Sometimes you have to just submit yourself to destiny, that, okay, control what you can control. There are many factors. Like, we can talk about interviewing as well. You can do your best at interviewing, but then they might already have an internal candidate penciled in. You didn't get that job, and now you're like, I'm bad at interviewing. That's what internal locus of control people will do. I'm bad at interviewing. How do I get better at interviewing? Sometimes you just have to accept that, okay, this was not it. I am on the path. I'll continue to get better, but I'm only doing it. I'm only making it worse if I am trying to kind of put too much pressure on myself. So that's the swing that I was talking about.
That's an amazing mindset to have, because I know I can relate to it so much. Being a job seeker, taking, very brave decisions. Now I see it, moving countries with no family around, but with a strong, as you say, internal locus of control, right? And you have this dialogue and that story that is around you. You try to control what you are good at, but when it comes to external outcomes, you find that conflict between that internal part you control and the external outcome. But sometimes you need to surrender. If I interpret it in a different way, of what you can control, but there's always these other variables outsides that are not in your control, and that can be applied to any stage of life, anything you do. Amazing. Varun, this is like so much like wisdom coming from you. This is why I love having conversations with you.
Before you go on to the next question, let's piggyback on what you said, right? Which is, I have built a story around me, which is I'm an introvert, and you build your whole career around that. Okay, what I as an introvert can do, and how can I maximize my talents? Now, I have a question for you. I've always been an extrovert, so I've not been able to kind of gauge this properly. And you can say I'm completely wrong. But when people say that they are introverts, how much of it is basic nature and how much of it is not having the skill set or not learning the skill set to kind of talk to people, or not having the systems, the frameworks to kind of have conversations? If you could, from your experience for Pan, right? How much of it was nature? How much of it was, okay, I just don't have the means. Like, I don't have the language to write, so I cannot write, but it's not like I would never know how to write. Something like that. What would that be for you?
Brilliant question, Varun. If you ask this question when I was a 20-year-old, I will say this is what I am. This is what I am. Maybe I will say I inherited this from my parent, who was also an introvert. But this is what I've been telling myself. But it was more of an unconscious pattern or a story I've been telling myself. And then I made my whole around me based on that story. I know someone going through the same challenge or idea, they might disagree, but this is from my personal experience. For the first 20 years, mid-20s, I was always thinking like that. Even when I migrated to Australia, I was like, okay, I'm in IT. I don't like doing presentations. But then sometimes opportunities came to me that challenged me, that I have to do it. For an example, when I became a business analyst, I had to facilitate workshops to stakeholders. Oh, now what I'm going to do? So I thought I'm not good in presenting or talking to people or facilitating and in high impact meetings. I went home and I just put myself like 2 days weekend, and I just put myself out there learning about it and practice it. I mean, it again, I presented it. I again judged myself for telling that maybe it's not for me. But I realized, based on the successes that I had and progress that I had in my career, it was an internal dialogue. And then I put myself into that box of an introvert. So for your question, Varun, from my experience, I would say 90% of that is that internal dialogue and that story you build around yourself, which can be unconscious. Most of the time it's unconscious. You don't even know that you can come out of that box. And for me now, to be able to coach people, go and speak in do public speaking, it itself is a proof that it can be learned. And now I try not to put myself labels. That has worked for me. I don't call myself like this or that. I'm just a person going through an experience. But sooner as I put myself in a box, I am an introvert or I am this or that, then I surrender to that story. I just commit to that story, which in self limits me to see the other potential. And that could be is the limitation. So this is my personal experience, Varun. Like first half of my life, I always, just look at it in an external way. I grew up, this is what my parents are saying, this is my friends are saying, you're an introvert, you don't speak that much. In high school or university, I just do the technical part, that's it. Nothing much, but when opportunities came to me, it forcefully I had to put myself out there and to learn skills. And I tried it. It was so uncomfortable, but I broke it few areas, and that's why I'm here now talking to you. So I'm glad you asked this question because I still, when I coach people, I'm sure you come across people as well, they have this preconceived notion about themselves. And sometimes I empathize because you can't look at them, judge them in that way because it's a conditioning. It has happened over years and years and years of their life. So it's difficult to break it just because I say them, okay, it's just an illusion. You need a lot of inner work and understanding about why this happened and why you are telling this story, or maybe there are other moments that you said no to, maybe you could have tried better. What are the moments? So it's just more self-understanding.
I think it's maturity, it's getting examples from other places. But kudos to you, right? To even ask that question to yourself and kind of say, okay, life put you in a situation where you had to present in a stakeholder meeting. If you were never put in that situation, you would never go to seek what's out there to learn. So to use the word that you were using, surrender, right? Sometimes you have to surrender. And my theory is that we are all ambiverts in a way, right? We are extroverts in some areas, introverts, and everybody is at a different level on that range. I feel that given systems that you can learn, everybody can find themselves in spots where they would love to do something which is traditionally associated with somebody being an extrovert, somebody being a very communicative. We can all get there and we don't need to stay there. We can always come back to like the equilibrium that we like, but it's not like we can't kind of go in that range.
Love that perspective because it kind of speaks to me well, because it's not that I completely overcome that part. Sometimes when I have a social conversation, I feel my social battery is draining, right? Okay, it's time to go back and just relax. And for the next day, I'm not going to talk with anyone. That's okay, right? But it's just that part reality can be different to each person. So, and then you can be in that, some kind of a scale, and it's
Absolutely.
more, you are more intentional about your reactions to it. Amazing. Now, transitioning into your big life decision, right? Going to Michigan
Absolutely.
at a time when there was a recession, right? And you talk about where your general manager was saying no to you or not to come there, but you still decided to go. Like, that's, I think, one of the bravest decisions I find someone can take, right? Still going there, doing that, making that decision, right? What was the inner dialogue like going through that?
So this was a person at General Motors, one of these big companies in the auto industry, and I got their connection. I was always super interested in automotive engineering. And I was deciding between the US and Germany as a place for me to study further because at that time, options in Mumbai were limited to like doing a master's in one of the IITs if you could get in. Master's IIT is not as crazy as bachelor's IIT, but still, that was probably one of the only few institutes who were doing a master's in automotive engineering, and I was really keen on that. So I had two options, US and Germany. Germany was a great option always. It's one of the most stable countries out there. Obviously, every country goes through ups and downs. But then I just couldn't get the language. I went to classes and I went to two classes, and then the way they say V is an F, or they pronounce an F as a V, and my name was Varun, and I'm like, okay, what's going to happen with my name? And then on the US side, I was a big PlayStation fan. I was a big Metallica fan. I was into a lot of the stuff like Prison Break was big. I don't know if you are from that same era or not, but the show Prison Break was huge, and we were downloading the pirated version from torrent or something like that. So I was already influenced by the US, so I chose to pursue US as my path. But this was in 2010, right on the heels of 2008 recession, which was a huge recession in the US, and automotive industry was particularly hit very badly. So if you were on the ground, there was no encouragement for you during that period. So this person who was at General Motors, the top company in the US, he just outright said, Varun, just don't come here. And I don't think this is a good time to come. I think you'll find it hard to find a job. And I know we've had this conversation like in the comments and stuff like that. And I've tried to kind of internalize what was it really that I wanted to kind of go. So think of it as like I think of it as skydiving. So I wanted to skydive. Like, so I think in the same way, I was desperate to go and get a new adventure, start somewhere else where, I could kind of get a different life or something like that. I was ready for an adventure. And I had two parachutes. One parachute was that I believed in myself. I thought I could again make things happen, figure something out in the US. And the other parachute was my family. My family, super supportive all through childhood. My parents were probably the best parents. Like my friends used to call, dude, you have American parents. That kind of a parents I had. So I knew that I could always come back and they would help me figure things out. We were not affluent. I went there on a loan. I went there only because I got a 40% scholarship. So my mom and dad put their house on the line to send me. So it wasn't easy for them to say, okay, yeah, we'll figure it out. But they never showed any kind of fear, even when this person from GM said, and they've not even, my mom is a bachelor's in arts. My dad was into civil engineering, but left school. So it wasn't like they knew the path that I was going to take. So I think of it as like, I would summarize, which is skydiving, is that I was ready for the adventure and I had two parachutes. One was I believed in myself that I could make something happen. And I didn't care. If I had to come back, would have come back, because then I had the second parachute, which is my parents. And they were like, we'll figure it out. We'll do, if things are bad, if you have to come back, we'll figure it out as well. But the 40% scholarship helped with that.
Amazing. Yeah, 40% scholarship doesn't definitely helps. And it's amazing how you saw that as a skydiving. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to any of the decisions they are trying to make in that way. But I am curious to ask, I'm sure like your parents have sacrificed a lot and it's great to have that support, especially when you are making those kind of big decisions, right? And even I'm grateful for that support system I had. But for someone who's willing to take that decision, or maybe a major life decision, and let's say they are trying to do that skydive, but they might not have the same parachutes like you and I had.
I think it's
What would you
so
say?
easy to find information right now that you should always have the complete level of information you can get before making this such a big decision. Now, I went into this with like a horse with blinders, where I was like, okay, master's degree, try to get a job. But I didn't know the mess the US immigration system is. And there wasn't a lot of information at that point. But there is a dearth of information right now. Like you can, in a matter of seconds, you can ask AI if I am going to the US for the next 10 years, what are the immigration challenges I will see? And it will give you like a really good list of things that you would see as challenges. So I would say that whether you're choosing to go to the US or Canada or Australia like you did, or Ireland, so many places that people are going to right now, understand all the challenges that you're going to get. I know there will always be bravado that I'll make things happen and I'll figure it out. In that case, go for it. Go with your gut. But just know the complete story to the best of your abilities, because when you have information, creative solutions can come out. I'll give you an example. I was in the US on something called an H1B. So, I don't know how many of your audience cares about US immigration, but it's like a specialty visa that is a little restrictive. And you can't really get side income. You can't really start your own business if it's not in the line of your field of study. There's just many nuances around it. Now, I didn't have the information that there is something else called an O1 visa. I didn't have another information that, oh, I could go to Canada on a PR. It was only when one of my closest friends who used to live in Detroit got a permanent residency in Canada, where I was like, oh, okay, this is something that I can do to get out of this H1B mess that I am in while holding my US job. So I would say balance the bravado and the confidence that you have in yourself, but yourself with all the information that you can get, because then creative solutions can come out of it when you are stuck down the line. And you will be stuck. There's no immigrant I know, or forget immigration. If you are starting a business, if you're pivoting into a new field, there's nobody who's not going to get setbacks. You are going to get setbacks. Try to find information. As a business, somebody who's starting to launch a business, I invested probably $15,000-$20,000 learning from entrepreneurs. And so at least I know to articulate my problem and I can find creative solutions for it.
Amazing. I think that gives a framework as well, Varun, for a lot of people. I know H1B1 could be a term that my audience might be unfamiliar, but Australia has its own visa system, not as complicated as US, as I know, but still it's the same mindset methodology about when you are uncertain about taking a decision. Now it's way more easier to collect information, but it's also being aware that you can get into that more consumption information stage, but balance it out with your intuition and knowing that you're going to give it a try, and then taking an action as well while you have certain amount of information to make a calculated decision, which is amazing. You talked about investing. I want to pick up on that, right? Because I know you bet on yourself for a lot. I think somewhere around, based on our conversations, you mentioned, I remember you invested like thousands of dollars in sales. What does it feel like betting on yourself like that?
I will take myself back to, my friend Sakit, who was like, okay, this is an unknown system. Let me figure out my way. Like, okay, dancing is an unknown territory for me. Let me figure out my way on it. So growing up, my parents were entrepreneurs, actually. They had a stationery shop in Mumbai. But I saw them struggle. Like, a shop is a hard business because you have to put hours in it. If you don't go to the shop during festival time, then you lose out on a good chunk of revenue. But then if you go, you're losing out on your family time. So I could see the amount of hard work and challenges my parents did growing up. It actually turned me off from entrepreneurship altogether, which is why this whole field about, okay, getting into engineering, because and I loved engineering, so I didn't mind it. But what did people say? Become a doctor, become an engineer, become a CA. If you were in Mumbai, if you are outside Mumbai, nobody even talked about a chartered accountant. But at least in Mumbai it was. So I became an engineer, went to the US, got a job, reached six figures in salary, and you feel, okay, life is set, right? But I guess it is just part of me, what I've gotten from in my genes, where entrepreneurship was always calling and beckoning, but I just didn't have the systems. I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship because life had been focused on education, engineering. So I needed to figure out my own degree in entrepreneurship. First of all, no degree like that existed in a university setup. And even if it did, I think it's a little BS, the whole university setup and what they teach you. And I saw that from engineering, right? Which is, yeah, they give you some systems, they give you frameworks, but not what's on land, what is active. And I fortunately at that time was thinking about, holy shit, I don't have the money to invest in anything. So I picked up a personal finance book by a guy called 𝗲𝗃𝗧. What a spammy title of that book, by the way. I Will Teach You to Be Rich was the name of the book, but just somehow I landed onto it. And that book was amazing for me. And it introduced me to 𝗲𝗃𝗧, who not only had written this personal finance book, but had digital courses on entrepreneurship, on how to find a good job, how to talk to anybody, um, and success triggers. He had these different programs. And I just fell into one over the other. And it was like, for him, I was like, wow, such a great customer. He bought this product, then this product, then this product, then this product. And I actually wrote a post on how many courses of his I had invested in. And somebody mentioned, oh, you are just advertising for Amit. And I'm like, I'm happy to advertise for him because what I invested in, I got 10 times more out of it in terms of dollars, in terms of mindset, and all of that. Ramit introduced me to other entrepreneurs like Tim Ferriss, Seth Godin, Wes Cow, and I actually then invested in their programs. So overall, I must have invested easily around $40,000 just learning different parts of entrepreneurship, sales, how to talk to people, mindset stuff, growth mindset stuff. I've been a big believer in investing your hard earned money into getting better in things that you want to get better at. And that's the reason why I shared the story, was that it wasn't intentional. It was just, I picked up a book that opened a new world for me, where I was like, okay, let me learn entrepreneurship. And that learning entrepreneurship got me the passion for it.
I can ask so many questions around that, Varun, because it's fascinating for me, especially as migrants, right? So I think I might pick up on that because I wanted to circle back to that childhood
Mm-hmm.
conditioning, right? So Mumbai and subcontinent, let's say subcontinent, and you've been trained to pick up a certain path in the traditional education system. You mentioned that engineering, biology, accounting, or something else. And investing on something like this outside the traditional education system, or that saving mindset, you said that has helped you in many ways. It is a strength. But also, I feel that could be a double edged sword, that mindset, when it comes to investing into something totally unnatural to what you've learned over the years on what you should be training. How did that learning come from? Because I know maybe it was natural for you, you learned the ROI, but for someone who has that mindset, I need to save, I need to pick up a job that gives me salary, I need to look after, there is some control around my expenses, mortgage or whatnot, but I'm not gonna invest anything outside of this scope. What would you say to someone who is in that mindset?
It was so hard for me to invest in the first course, like a digital course, outside of the traditional institutions that we've invested thousands of dollars in without even thinking. Why? Because we would get a certificate in the end that we would signal that this is my degree, and somebody would give us a job because of that. But now you're trying to learn a course, does not come with a certificate. You still have to work your ass off. Nobody's giving you a job because of that course. It's just something that you are doing to learn. And yeah, eventually you will get something great out of it. So, very difficult for me to invest the first time. The friction was super high, super, super high. I think, again, desperation helped, right? I was desperate at that time to do something where I was like, okay, I have to change. I have to do something different. In fact, I had asked Ramit's team to refund the first purchase I had made. because I was like, oh, I'm on a visa. I can't really do this on the side. I can't earn on the side. They said, okay, share some things that you have applied and we will refund the money. And in that process, when I was actually applying something, I realized, okay, this can help me. Does not help me right now, but this can help me. And then I slowly started to see the ROI of those activities. And then it became very natural because I knew that I was putting in $10 and getting 30 back. So it's like a stock. If you know for sure you invest $10, you're going to get 30 back. You are going to do it every day. So I continue to do that. But the first time was extremely high friction. All I would say to people is that find what you want to get really good at, and then find the person who's really good at it, and just blindly for one time trust in what they are teaching. Don't go to Udemy, don't go to Coursera. I mean, it's okay, not bad options, but go to, if you want to learn photography, go to the best landscape photographer who has a course available, and just blindly trust that person by giving your hard earned money. Then decide for yourself whether that was a good investment for you or not. I would just caveat that with saying, don't end with just one data point. You have 15 years of traditional education. You have 15 years of data points of traditional education and how much worth that is. Just go do a little bit more data points in terms of these things, and then you decide whether this route of investing in yourself is beneficial for you or not, or you want to just go the route of YouTube videos, free material, but then you know that you will be putting a lot of effort, iterating on your own, trying things on your own will take you a lot longer than learning from somebody, understanding their systems and testing it out. How was that experience for you, Pan? You must have invested in courses as well.
A lot, but as similar to you, Varun, the first one was bloody hard. Like again, there were so many moments where I got quotations, and I know this will give me value, but that voice, that conditioning, I've been telling that to myself, like just allowed me to pull out from it. So many times I was just about to make a decision, and then somehow I don't know. Now I think about it, like I realized it's just there was no valid reason for that. It's just that mindset about okay, and I feel now it's the scarcity mindset. I do believe we operate two levels: abundance, scarcity, right? And then especially with the subcontinent, we are more operated in a scarcity mind. Everything's scarce, right? Whether it's money, resources, whatever, and we try to interpret our decisions based on that. So I felt money was scarce. So if I invest, then I'm gonna, like, I didn't think about any ROI, and ROI was scarce too.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking of, can I even break even this? And if I can't break even, that's not a good healthy choice. But now I really feel the value, because sometimes as a coach, I am selling a service and I feel I have to live what I teach. I constantly over the years invested in many courses, and the ROI is sometimes it's not even, I can't explain, put it into a number. That's the part. That's what I want to ask you, Varun, because yeah, for me to quit my job and start my business, pick everything, from doing sales to invoices to marketing and everything, going through all the emotional challenges, the unseen ones, to build a business, managing clients, and all these other challenges that comes through. For me, one of the biggest things that have helped is to investing on myself. And I know Ramit Sethi talks about that as well, that sometimes our mindset is investing on houses. That's great, like just buying the mortgage as soon as possible, and that is the measure. But where is the ROI compared to investing on yourself? We often don't look at it because it's not a known script for us. The known script is the traditional path of like investing on a like house, raising a family, and super. We call it super, that's a retirement fund, right? So has given me so many. So that's my personal experience, and I know the value of it, and I continue to be intentional about investing on myself every year. It's not that I do it like mindlessly, but as you said, I choose mentors maybe who have done like who's there already, or maybe overcome the objections or the challenges that I'm going through, and invest on it. One thing that people see is the tangible side, right,
Mm-hmm.
of investing. ROI could be a number. I invest $5,000 in 1 year. If I build business and then get X amount of customers, I might be able to get to 20,000 4 times. All right, ROI. That's great. What about the intangible side, Varun? Because in investing, that's something that people don't see, and that limits them to take that action. What are the intangible ROI that you've got so far in investing?
The biggest intangible ROI, there are two big ones. Growth mindset is something that we've talked about a lot in this conversation. I didn't have the language of growth mindset, and a lot of it came from some of the mentors that I mentioned. But let me focus on the second one. I think a big intangible for me after learning all of this is relationships. And we are an example of that, right? It is how do you measure Varun knowing Pan and Pan knowing Varun across the world? We've never met, we've never crossed paths. But now, if I have to go to Australia where you are, I'm like, Pan, I'm here, let's meet up. Or I think we are at a level where I can even say, hey, Pan, I just need a couch to sleep for a night, right? And you'll be like, oh man, take my bed, I have a different bed that you can take. Whatever the case is, I think relationships and what I have built through this process, online, offline, learning how value works, how to add value, how to collaborate together, and not just in the traditional sense of doing a webinar together or doing a course together, but just be helpful to each other. I think that has been the biggest intangible. I don't know how to value the relationships that I have built on the foundation that has been built with these courses, on just how do people work, how do businesses work, how to give value to people. That will be one of the biggest intangibles outside of the growth mindset that we've talked about.
Amazing. Like, I think I'm so grateful that we are here, Varun, because these little things that we invest on is transporting us to in whatever the journey that we are in. But sometimes we don't have that clarity in the mind to see it, because what I see is based on how we see the world. We sometimes it's easier to see the tangible things, but the intangible things sometimes I feel supersedes in terms of especially facing challenges. For me, one thing is the imposter syndrome, because I would like to dive into that part as well, because managing your own business, like people see that person who shows up and trying to be an expert sharing advice, but for me, like, it's been a continuous learning journey, understanding my own inner battles, inner learnings, and dialogue, and that investing on myself, learning from other people who are going through that same journey, or maybe who has just a little bit ahead than me on that, has helped me understand this is just a common challenge. Otherwise, what I found was, Varun, that entrepreneurship sometimes can be lonely. Like, I know we have the family partner to support, amazing. Like, I'm so grateful for that. But sometimes you go to bed thinking about this uncertainty of business, and you wake up with the same thinking that, okay, whatever I try today might get me a lead. And also the uncertainty around putting yourself out there, sharing content, sometimes vulnerable things. It can be a very daunting journey, and managing that emotion sometimes can take a lot of toll on you. So for me, investing on myself, whether it be talking to other founders who are going through the same journey, intentionally putting myself out there to meet communities, some people are doing the same thing, same challenges, have helped me a lot to see that in a different view that is not just me. And that I can relate to any other challenge. For an example, building this new brand, I know that, yeah, it's not going to be easy. Some days it might work, some days, like, yeah, crickets, you get nothing. Right? What's your, moving on to that, what's your learnings like in terms of that, building your business? Because I know Beyond Grad is such an amazing brand, and the work that you're doing is so impactful to a lot of people. But what's the behind the scenes work like?
I think social media attention is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to entrepreneurship. It is the thing that you see above the water. It's the thing where somebody can look at the iceberg above the water and say, oh, wow, that looks amazing. At the same time, I think how you build a business depends so much on what kind of attention you're getting. Do you have systems to kind of build more trust at the one level down? Then do you have systems to build actual revenue? And all those three things, the things above the water, the things below the water, has been the toughest thing I have done in my life, period. It is so challenging. All of the entrepreneurship thing has been the most challenging thing I have done. Also, going back to having there so much be outside of my control that if I didn't have the drive for it, if I didn't have the desire for it, it does not make sense almost. It, I think there's the concept about delaying gratification, right? Entrepreneurship is the BAP of that. Like BAP in Hindi, in Mumbai terms, is like the father, the epitome of delayed gratification. I think entrepreneurs work for years and years before they see anything commiserate to the value that they put in year one. You are not going to, probably year 10 is where you are covering up for all these years of working on your business. So delayed gratification is something that I'm learning. I'll tell you something interesting, Pan, that I'm noticing with entrepreneurship and my journey with it is that yes, I'm struggling for sure. Internally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, there's a lot of hard work. And I feel this is getting a little woo-woo, is that I follow the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, one of the books of Hinduism. And Bhagavad Gita, if I have to put it down in one sentence, it is all about focus on the action that you do, not the fruits of your action. And I think, yeah, absolutely. This entrepreneurship journey feels like my spiritual journey, where entrepreneurship is the vehicle through which I am failing, succeeding a little bit, failing again on the spiritual side of things. Like, again, translating that one sentence, entrepreneurship is all about metrics and things of that nature. So you're always tracking the fruits of your action. But what I am, the spiritual side of me, which is what the main game is for me, is focus on just your action, not on the fruit. So even though I will say outright that I fail 360 days out of 365, is that probably this is my vehicle of getting to my spiritual goal, which is the main goal for me right now. So a little woo woo, not the Varun who shares frameworks and stuff like that, but I think this is my path of getting better on my spiritual journey, if it makes sense.
That's very powerful, Varun. To be honest, it is not woo woo for me. I'm sure a lot of my audience and people who are listening to wouldn't consider itself woo-woo, but I understand it's a very fresh insight to this Varun, right? Like, we all know you, as I said, that's how we started our conversation about the person who is such a, value-driven, adding so much of frameworks, but what's your mindset behind doing all this work and continue to show up even in the middle of challenges and uncertainty? And your story is such a testament to it, and it's so refreshing to hear that spiritual part to you and what keeps you grounded. Even for me, like, that has helped me a lot in terms of always
Mm-hmm.
thinking that's like
Mm-hmm.
we are playing a
Mm-hmm.
game, a game of life, but there's something bigger. And sometimes it's just showing up and doing the work, enjoying it, detaching yourself from a
Mm-hmm.
specific outcome. It's easier said than done. Someone looking to survive from their salary or a day job, like, I like completely understand that you might rely on that outcome, so there's friction to get that outcome by doing it, but just enjoy it. It helps you enjoy the work and then
Mm-hmm.
worry a little less about what's gonna come from your actions. Is the concept I think that we are both trying to give out. Is that correct?
And I think in beginning when you're thinking about, okay, differentiating between action and fruits of action, you almost become, what's the word for it? You almost go away from fruits of action. You're like, oh, don't come near me, as if that's a problem. I think maturity in the spiritual realm comes from not seeing that as a problem, actually welcoming fruits of action, but not have it be the focus of your work. So surrendering, right? We talked about surrendering a lot. Surrender to the outcome, whether good or bad. If it's good, great. If it's bad, great. If you're stoic through it, if that's not something you focus on, then that's the level that I would love to reach at some point. I'm not there yet, for sure, but that's a level I would love to reach at some point.
I'm interested to ask you, like, I know you talk about there were days like you have massive success on LinkedIn, like you have a massive following over 75,000. But you also talk about the story when there were days where you just show up, just post, but you don't get the same reaction, or sometimes nothing. And you talk about how difficult it was to starting out posting on LinkedIn and building this brand. How do you manage that in uncertainty?
Not well. I don't manage it as well. I just keep going. I think that's the takeaway from it, is that I just keep going. And it doesn't need to be early on, right? I have a following of more than 75,000 people right now, but you know how wonky LinkedIn algorithm can get. So I've had days in my first year of writing on LinkedIn where I reached million impressions from one post. The last two posts have written pan, they have not gone beyond 4,000 impressions. So it's not like, oh, it's a thing of the past that I had to choose how I reacted to it. I think it's still happening right now, where some days I'm putting my best effort and then the outcome is like, nope, not for our platform, not today. You're not getting even 1% of the reach of your follower count. So that's not something I can control over. And it can still screw up my day. It can still make me rethink, okay, what is the next level of strategy where I get more consistent impressions? I just have been able to push through now, continue to write, because think I have seen results from it. And the results were not always money, which is also a difficult part of entrepreneurship. Is you can get all the attention you want, but how do you convert that into actual revenue for your business? So the benefit I have seen of writing is clearer thinking, better frameworks, better programs, getting better at helping people, building relationships with people like you. And now I think I have seen enough benefits from it where I'm like, this is great. The numbers suck sometimes. The main objective is not hit sometimes. And I'm telling you about the last 2 days. This is 2.5 year into my journey. The last two posts, none of them have gone beyond 4,000 impressions, where at some point, 10,000 impressions was nothing for it. Like, okay, every post is getting 10,000 impressions. So I don't think I have a framework on how to manage that uncertainty. I don't think I do it well. I still focus on it. All I can say is I push through no matter what now. I continue to build no matter what. I'm continuing to take action. That's, I think, is the strand that I will at least share that can help you. And I'm sure it is similar for you.
100%, Varun. I mean, I haven't had that same exposure to, having a post going viral to millions of, impressions. But I think it's not about the scale, but the feeling, how you perceive it, right? I think feelings are quite similar, and I'm glad that you shared this, because someone else who is listening could be thinking they might be in the early start of their posting journey. And I talk about that a lot. Like, it could be a job seeker or someone who want to start a side hustle and starting to post, expecting a reaction, and then when reaction is not matching your expectation, that creates that friction, right? I mean, for us, even for me, I've been posting for 4 years, so I have enough amount of data set or understanding about the benefit. Again, as you said, writing has helped me. It's also, you're transferring all that thought process into writing. It clears space in your head for thinking those things maybe someone else is not aware of at this stage. But for you, I really love the part. It's so humbling for you to share this, Varun, because last 2 days going to this post, I'm sure it's one thing I love about you, is that some days, you feel like, okay, it's okay to acknowledge that feeling, because it's easier to say, hey, don't worry, just keep going. But sometimes when you feel like sad, or when you feel like, I just put a lot of energy into writing this post and I thought it might perform better, or someone might come and comment on it, but when you don't get a reaction like that, you might feel not okay. And it's okay to feel not okay. But it's just that you have to be aware, not let it become your reality, or internalize it, thinking that, oh, I'm not good in writing. That's where it has helped me. Some post doesn't do well at all, and I've invested a week of my energy to thinking, brainstorming different hooks, different formatting. But some posts that I share from a quote just perform so well, and then I realize, this is really, am I a good writer? Am I good enough to write? And then now, after years of writing, I understand it's a process. I cannot control everything on other people, how they react. There's so many variables. Algorithm keeps changing. It's ever state of flowing. People change. People's mindset, the ideas that they have about me changes. But I just enjoy the process. Coming back to your point, just karma yoga, just doing it. Detaching yourself from the outcome. But acknowledging that sometimes, some days, you might not feel good about not getting a reaction. It's a human nature. So that's my little bit of piece, what I've learned over the years in writing, Varun. Now, Beyond Grad has done some wonders, right? I wanted to ask some piece of advice from you. Let's say you talk a lot about like jumping from your corporate to getting into the business. Someone who is having like, or maybe having an idea as a side hustle, or maybe at the starting point, there's always this conflict between your ambition and your family. What would you say to someone who's juggling it between this idea about, should I pursue my ambition or should I focus on the family?
Tell me more about that. Give me like a person that you're thinking of, the situation. Give me more about this question.
Of course. So to elaborate, let's say someone is having a stable career, who's executive in a finance company, but having an idea that there is this coaching side. Let's create an example of coaching, right? So some people have said that, okay, why don't you pick up a coaching thing? Because I personally have looked up to you as a coach, a mentor. But this person has a really stable career and a top company earning good money. But there is this inner, that burning sensation or intuition, whatever we call it, to pick up something. Some people have offered, or some people have asked help to get coaching from this person. And this person is thinking, okay, where should I start? I know a good platform could be LinkedIn. Maybe I tried sharing a couple of posts. People reacted to it, but it's not as good as I think. That part we discussed. But that conflict between, like, I really want to pursue a path of coaching someone that gives me energy, but also fulfillment for me, but for helping someone. I have achieved a level of career in my corporate job that I know it's very routine work for me, like autopilot. But I don't know, like, if this will work out. I don't know if just taking this jump will compromise the commitments that I have around my family, the mortgage, or the other freedom that I get from having a predictable income. What would you say to someone like that?
I would say that you should always start on the side first. Don't jump into entrepreneurship if you don't have a 2-year financial runway. Because the first 2 years, I mean, it's almost like a wash because there's just so much happening. So the first thing I would say to anybody who has a stable job and has financial responsibilities, that unless you are going to put your savings on this for at least 2 years, don't do it full time. Just start on the side. Now the question becomes, how do you do it on the side, right? So I had a full-time job. I had 2 kids, 6 and 2 at that point. It's all a question about, okay, where do you find the time? And I always never have a good answer for it. How do you find time, right? Because whatever is important for us, we have found time for it. And I say this as a person who has complained about not finding time to go to the gym. It's just not that important. So in phases of my life, it has never been that important for me where I would choose to do that over watching Netflix, right? Or just whiling away my time doing something else. So I would say you will find time if it's important for you. First decide whether it's important for you or not. If it is important, start on the side and start by just writing your thoughts on a platform where people exist. The reason to do that is, if people don't know you are a mentor who has this solution, how will people come to you? There's just no way for people to know. Like, if I didn't see you writing, I wouldn't know Pan in Australia. I just wouldn't know who that person is. So you don't need to write on LinkedIn, or you don't need to show up on Instagram. Maybe Medium is the right place for you, or Quora, or whatever the case is. Or Reddit is for some. Find a place where people are and start sharing valuable information. Don't keep anything to yourself. Give everything away for free in bits and pieces. People come to you to work with you for access, for organization of those bits and pieces. The more you share, the less risky for them to know what you are going to teach, and more likely they are going to invest in you. So only start on the side. I would say I would highly recommend that. And then jump into it full time once you see some signs. If you have runway, if you have family support, then jump into it full time, but start on the side.
What a philosophy. It's almost a philosophy, right? Because you can get into all these what to write and frameworks and hooks and copies, and you can get so analytical about it. But the first step is not what's the best post is, or best framework, or what's the best time to post is. It's just just sharing out there of what you've learned, and choose one platform and give it all you out. And I love your analogy of you're just sharing bits and pieces. People come to you to organize those pieces together through yourself. And anyone, whether you are a coach, health coach, fitness person, someone with knowledge in finance or whatever, it's that you can apply the same methodology, right? But don't jump straight away. Just do it in the side first and then test it out. So it's also a practical way of approaching it, Varun. Now, I can talk this conversation can flow into different areas. I know I'm taking your time as well, Varun, but I think it's not fair to wrap up our conversation without touching a bit of career coaching. I know I promised you this is not going to be a career coaching, because I know we do that every day in day and out. I wanted to showcase that person, the human behind Varun, but I think maybe people might get a bit of value if we share a bit of that.
Sure.
Right? If with your permission.
Oh, of course.
I know that you helped a lot of people, especially with MAANG companies. And before any of that, I want to ask, what is MAANG companies?
So in the US especially, there's this whole thing about MAANG, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, is the companies that pay really well in the tech world, who are some of the biggest organizations. So Meta, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. Those are MAANG companies. And they operate at a different level. Not one of them is the same. So for everyone, you have to do something slightly different in terms of if you're really optimizing to go in those companies. But that's where the name MAANG comes from.
Thanks for explaining that. I know you've helped a lot of people get into these MAANG companies. What makes those people different from someone working for a startup?
Nothing's different. And I've talked about this a lot, and I had this question myself. Having never worked in a MAANG company, I was like, okay, what is different about them? And I got people who used to work at those companies to work with me. They have the same freaking fears that we have, right? I have all these technical skills. How do I communicate that I'm a top performer in my marketing materials so that I get interviews? And once I get interviews, how do I convince them that I'm the right fit for them? What do I say? What do I share? I think one thing that is different from people who work at MAANG companies and startups is nothing to do with them. It's just to do with the organizations that they worked at. At MAANG companies, you get pigeonholed into one function for that particular role. You can change different roles over time, but if you are in that role, you're just doing that one small function, unless you become a staff engineer where you probably have 2-3 functions. Whereas in the startup, that person is wearing multiple hats. So you are wearing the hat. Let's say you are a product manager. In a MAANG company, you're only doing product. In a startup company, you are doing product, you are doing sales, you are doing engineering if need be. You are doing a lot of the things that you need to do in a startup world. I have just want to open this kind of curtain that there's nothing special about the people that go into MAANG. The only difference I have seen is that they, while having imposter syndrome, feel like they belong in those rooms. And they know that there is a path to get there, and I have to figure out that path. Everything is figure outable, right? There are things in my control that I can figure out. I think probably this probably might be the last time I'll go back to my friend Saket again, right? Which is, I don't have dancing, but I want to get an A grade in dancing. How do I break it down into things that are comfortable for me? I can break it down into, I can write the exact steps, I can record, I can practice. I think that's the difference that I have seen, is that they look at it as something that can be figured out, and then they are not shy from asking help from other people. I think they have seen enough ROI from joining boot camps, talking to people, doing mock sessions where they know that they want to kind of invest in getting better to a point where you can get there.
That's very refreshing to hear, Varun, because I've come across with people who I've coached, like already telling that story that maybe I can't get into Meta, maybe like I can't, I'm not there just to get into Apple. And they always think it's a skill gap. It could be, but as you're saying, that it's more of a mindset and then the belief of that you belong working in there and being intentional about taking action, whether it's to upskill yourself, whether it's to learn or bridge a skill gap that you have, and you just take action whenever you feel the need to take action rather than just fueling that story that you already have within you. What is one of the barriers that you saw in people in communicating the value? Because that's a big question, right? That could be a key component of, I have two graduates graduating from the same university, maybe just a little bit of difference in the grades, but same knowledge level, same project. Someone goes to a multinational Fortune 200 company, someone settles in some other company. When you realize that the gap was how they communicated their value, from your experience coaching hundreds or thousands of people, what is holding people back in communicating their value?
We can probably talk for 5 hours and I can do a sermon about this. And I'm sure you can help, you can as well, based on all your experience that you have. If I have to boil it down, I would say it's about two things. It's about specifics and structure. What I have seen people struggle with is these two things. Let me give you an example of that. If I am asked in an interview setting, tell me about a time that you had a conflict with a coworker. I think a lot of people share the story about it. Oh, this happened. I had a conflict with this person. We were not aligning well. I held meetings with them, which is generally what the answer boils down to, anyways. I had meetings with them. We got alignment. Things move forward. That's the whole STAR framework, right? But give me specifics. What was the conflict? How was the conflict affecting the results of the project? How was the conflict affecting interpersonal skills? Now that you've given me specifics about that, give me a bit more than just, oh, we got aligned on a meeting together. So I need specifics there as well. How did you get alignment? And then finally, give me metrics about what happened to the project. Like, this was a big catalyst to us doing something differently next time. Now we have this process. This project had this impact metric benefit, and now we are going to roll it out group wide. Give me specifics. So one thing is specifics are missing. The other thing is there's no structure. So people just start sharing their stories. And I, as a listener, have to keep up with you, have to run with you as I share this story. If you are running faster than me, I'm not understanding you. It is not my duty to kind of ask you again. If I'm not understanding you, you are out of the running. So it is your duty to make me understand. Case in point, this answer. I started by giving structure to my answer. Is that these are the two things that are missing: specifics and structure. That's how you want to answer interview questions as well. You want to give structure to your answers, that I had this conflict with my coworker. It affected us in 3 ways. Then you share the 3 ways. Now we got alignment in these 2 ways. Then you share the 2 ways. Essentially, you have to give me bones that I can hold on to as a listener, so that I am walking along with you and I'm not running behind you trying to catch up and keep up without knowing what's around the corner. So it is for you to give me the specifics. It's for you to give me the structure. Those are the two things that are missing when it comes to communicating top performance.
Brilliant. I mean, if I can elaborate on this, and this can become an interview masterclass, right? Because it's amazing that point you said about specifics and the structure. Starting with that specific, I believe, draws the listener their curiosity, because if they're not curious enough to listen, they will be running behind. Where you draw in their curiosity, or maybe it's a problem that I face and you are taking along with them in that journey. It's the same story. With two people, they could be sharing the same story, the same project, but the reframing, specifics and structure could be different. I'm sure people can apply this into many others. So I'm not going to ask more interview questions, because that's, if people want to hear interview strategies, go to Varun's LinkedIn profile. You will learn a lot just from the so much of valuable free content you post. But I just want to pick your brain on one question before we wrap up. Varun, look, I know that I went over time. I have to say this is the longest conversation I've had so far with a guest, because I feel that this was flowing, and I felt like I am in flow and we were in flow, and there was a lot of insights that came in. But I'm conscious of the time that you're just starting your day. I'm just ending my day from here. But usually we wrap up the conversation with one question, but I'm gonna ask you two.
Cool. Happy to do it, man.
Because you are special. So first question is like, what would you say to that kid now who grew up in Mumbai?
You've lived your dreams, and this is a conversation I had. You've lived your dreams. You've lived things that you haven't even dreamed of. Try to find more joy in life. That's what I would say.
Amazing. Last question is, what's one thing you have unlearned?
One thing I have unlearned. I think a big part that I have unlearned is around the invisible scripts I had around money and wealth. I think the biggest thing I've unlearned is that wealth is not fear-inducing. Wealth is not always earned by bad means. Wealth is just a consequence of spreading more value than what you are getting. So that's the biggest thing I've learned.
Wow. I put you on the spot, but you came out with this wisdom. So amazing, Varun. I'm so thankful to you for spending these 1.5 hours with me and sharing your knowledge, your learnings, your wisdom with the audience. I'm sure people will get a lot of value and insights from this. Thanks for your time. I'm sure there's going to be many more conversations, hopefully, with you.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure having you. And finally, like, I know we both connected with cricket, but also Metallica.
Right.
So hopefully one day that I'll be able to watch a concert with you of Metallica, because they keep saying no to coming here down under. I bought some tickets, but they decided to pull out from it because it's such a big trip to make it down here. So hopefully one day we'll get to watch Metallica together if you are still interested. So thanks again, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Awesome. Happy to be in touch. Happy to have made a friend in you, and happy to go to Metallica concert anytime.
Thanks, Varun.
Yeah.